Is there anything better than the comforting aroma of fresh homemade bread? With this simple recipe, you can create the perfect white bread with an airy crumb and a crispy golden crust. Its flavor and texture will exceed your expectations, and the process of cooking it will be a real pleasure. This bread will be the perfect accompaniment to any dish or the basis for delicious sandwiches. Try it, and you won't want to buy bread at the store anymore. To make 2 loaves of bread weighing 600 grams each, you will need warm water, around 35 to 40 degrees Celsius, fast yeast, 10 grams, sugar, 25 grams, vegetable oil, 30 grams, salt, 14 grams, flour, 800 grams, kefir or Greek yogurt, 1 tablespoon. You can start by activating the yeast to make sure it's alive and will raise the dough well. I'm confident in my yeast, so I skip this step and knead the dough right away. I like to use a large rectangular bowl because it makes kneading so much easier. Grab a bowl, pour in about half a liter of warm water, and add 2 teaspoons and a half teaspoon of dry yeast. Give it a gentle stir until the yeast is dissolved, then add a tablespoon of sugar and 1 tablespoon of yogurt, which I like to use Greek, but you can use kefir if that's what you have on hand. Now, let me share a little secret with you. When I add kefir or yogurt, it makes a world of difference. Kefir makes the bread crumb more airy and soft, thanks to the lactic acid and fats it contains. Dairy products give the bread a lovely, slightly sour tinge to the flavor, which makes it more rich and interesting. Kefir helps create a more uniform, porous crumb structure. Bread with kefir is a real treat because the dairy keeps it moist, so it doesn't go stale as quickly. The addition of kefir's acidic touch helps the yeast do its thing, ensuring a beautiful rise in the dough. So, when you add kefir, you get a loaf that's not just tasty, but also incredibly tender, full of flavor, and stays fresh for way longer. I add the vegetable oil, mix again, and the last ingredient I add is the flour. I sift the flour 27.51 ounces minus 780 grams, leaving the remaining 0.71 ounces as minus 20 grams for the end of the cooking process, when it will be kneaded. I don't like it when the dough sticks to my hands, so I knead it with a silicone spatula, which is very convenient. I stir to mix the flour with water, then use my hands to knead the dough into a ball. Knead the dough for 8 to 10 minutes. You'll know you've got it right when it's soft, smooth, and elastic, not sticking to your hands, but not too dense. If it's a bit sticky, don't worry. Just add a little more flour, but take it easy. You don't want to overdo it and make your bread stiff. I like to put the dough in a big bowl that I've greased with a bit of vegetable oil, so it doesn't stick. Then, cover the bowl with a kitchen towel or plastic wrap. Then, put it in a warm place, like next to the radiator or in a slightly warm oven, and let the dough rise for 1 to 1.5 hours, depending on the temperature. I have a very hot plus 30 degrees right now, so it took me 1 hour, and during this time, it should roughly double in volume. The dough has risen beautifully, and I gently remove the foil to reuse. Knead the dough with your hands, adding a little water to keep it from sticking. I knead by gently taking from the edge, pulling up and folding on 4 sides. Then I do the same and leave for 40 minutes for the third and last time. The dough is ready, so now we'll shape our bread, dust the table with extra flour, and gently turn the dough out. I divide it into 2 equal parts, wrap each half into a neat roll, pinch the edges, and place them in a greased dish or sprinkle with flour. I do the same with the second dough, cover it with foil, and let it rest for about 30 minutes. When our bread has risen, I'll sprinkle it with water. While that's happening, I'll turn on the oven so it's nice and warm, about 446 to 230 degrees. And put it in the oven for 15 to 20 minutes at a high temperature. This will help create a beautiful, golden crust. Then, I'll turn the temperature down to 392 to 200 degrees Celsius for another 20 minutes so the bread can bake thoroughly inside. If it starts to burn, don't worry. Just cover it with a sheet of foil. I take the bread out of the oven and immediately transfer it to a rack, which prevents the bottom from getting soggy. Check the readiness. Tap the bottom of the loaf. If the sound is muffled, the bread is ready. Then, I let the bread cool completely before slicing, which takes about 20 to 30 minutes. During this time, the crumb will finish and the bread will be easier to cut. And there it is, my homemade bread. It's incredibly soft on the inside, with a beautiful, porous structure, and the crust is just perfect, a nice, ruddy, crispy. As soon as it comes out of the oven, the whole house fills with the delicious aroma of freshly baked bread. Your loved ones are going to be delighted. Give this recipe a try, and you'll realize that it's worth every minute spent in the kitchen. I would absolutely love it if you'd give this recipe a like. And if you try it, I'd be so excited to hear how it turns out. I'm always interested to hear what you think.